Hey everybody, we're back. I got a bunch of books on the tables. You know what that means? It's time for another somewhat directionless sandbox campaign. We're gonna play solo, and I figured we're actually gonna be using the First Fantasy campaign as inspiration. This is not a genuine product. This is actually a recreation that we had printed from a PDF that we had. So as you might imagine, using First Fantasy Campaign as a sort of a detailed setting is going to be a little bit difficult. Arneson wrote a pretty bare bones product, but what this does afford us is the opportunity to build upon it in any way that we see fit. Usually, when one does a sandbox campaign like this, it can be a little bit difficult to find a direction to go in, but Arneson and Gygax kind of thought of a lot of things, and one of the things that Arneson in particular thought of near the back here in page 51. Page 51, they have this entire section on special interests. And one of these is called Hobby. And it says that magic users, I like to play magic users quite a bit. That's because I like spells and stuff. And it says that I'm not exactly sure what these numbers are supposed to mean, but 50 is the largest appearing number on this table. And for them, it appears under Hobby. And I was reading what a hobby was in this case. And in this context, it says this is a catch-all category left to the judge to award details on to the players. Examples include some of the more obvious pursuits, such as spell research by magic users, and specializing in, say, animal control or the raising and breeding of lycanthropes. That's messed up. Even the taking of spare parts and building a new creature, difficult but interesting. One's hobby could even be the devising of better torture machines, making gold, making as in like creating gold, not just like collecting it. The building of flying machines, all up to the judge to outline and define within the limits of his campaign. So I figured what we would do is we would use my character's hobby as sort of an inspiration or a goal. And since he's a magic user, I'm going to say he wants to build... we're gonna say he wants to build like a big machine, like a big golem type thing, but more mechanical than mystical, and that makes sense in the context of Blackmoor because Blackmoor has a lot of like artifice and technology going on. So we're gonna use this as kind of an outline. The system we're going to be using is actually the ZED or the Z Zero Edition Dungeoneering system found in the back of the Lost Dungeons of Tonnisborg. And I can't remember who wrote this system, but he also wrote the book I'm going to be using with it. Let's see. Does it say? It probably says in the Book of Elder Magic. D.H. Boggs. Sorry, I don't know your full name there, Mr. Boggs. But we're going to be using these two books in tandem in order to run our magic user character. There's some alternate spellcasting rules in here that I like quite a bit, such as a roll to cast system on page 70 and 71, which also includes methods for needing to succeed in a new spell before you can learn it properly. So we're going to be doing that. And according to Dave Arneson, that's kind of how he wanted his magic to work anyway. He wanted magic had to be a slow process. You had to learn it over time. So you didn't just automatically learn spells. You got to research them, and then you have to correctly cast them, or you just don't learn that spell for this level. So in order to make navigating around some of these areas a little bit easier, I'm going to be using Blackmoor Foundations, which is not appropriately a RPG supplement, but it does have some detailed maps of certain regions, such as directly around Blackmoor, which I have bookmarked someplace. Here we go. So, oh boy, I gotta move the camera. So, as you can see there, we have sort of the village of Blackmoor and some of the surrounding areas. This will come in handy once we actually get to Blackmoor, but that's not actually where we're going to start. See, I rolled for where my character is from actually quite some time ago. I didn't make this character for this video specifically. It's a guy I've been messing around with for a little while. We're actually going to be starting in the city of Mouse right there. This is not a well-described area, so I'm going to be kind of improvising where Mouse is. We can glean a little bit of information from the First Fantasy campaign. If we were to look up Mouse, the city of Mouse, there's a couple of different places where this is mentioned. It says the city of Mouse, the price same list as Vestful. The budget is 80,000 gold pieces. It has one city, which lords over 10 villages. So it's a pretty wealthy area. It says, let's see, trade 10, ships with the Great Kingdom, 10 ships with the Great Kingdom, 10 ships with the Egg of Coot. That's not good. If they're trading with the Egg of Coot, that means they're probably bad. 10 ships with the Scandaharians, which are also bad. Let's see. I know there was a list here where it listed the forces of good, evil, and neutrality in the Blackmoor setting, and I think Mouse was actually listed under evil. Yeah, evil forces. The Men of Mouse. Yeah, right up here. Oh, you can't even see it. So Mouse, it looks like, is aligned loosely with the Egg of Coot, the Duchy of 10, the Nomads of 10, which I assume they became the Peshwa later, I think. And with Monk's Vikings. I'm not entirely sure who Monk is or who his Vikings are. Yeah, that's where we're going to start. So from the looks of it, Mouse is a big old city, and there's 10 villages that surround it, and it's sort of on the northern part of this map here. Down that way is Blackmoor. I'll take this out and I'll use it as is needed. I kind of want to keep it in good condition because this is a genuine map of old Blackmoor. So to finish up our introduction here, one of the final books I'm going to be using is actually Gary Gygax's Dungeon Master's Guide, and the reason is because you could literally use this for almost any game system, because there's so many interesting and modular rules in here. Like there's dungeon generation in here. There's what happens when you drink 2 potions too quick, or spooky noises you hear during the night, or random NPC generation at the back of the book. Like it's too useful not to include. And finally, our character. This is Durleth the Dismal. He's a 3rd level magic user. He's a human. And he earned his nickname because he tends to have somewhat of an overly serious or melancholic disposition, although it's mainly just because he's thinking quite a bit. As a result, he doesn't tend to get on with people very well. He has a charisma of 9, which isn't terrible, but it does tend to represent how quiet or withdrawn he can be. So I've put him at 3rd level because we're going solo. We might meet some people. I started him with a magic item. He has a bronze ring of protection +3, so that means he's going to be a little bit harder to hit. We're making him a little bit tankier. I'm hoping he's not going to go the way of Lorkay and just dying a lot. So yeah, Durleth the Dour. He's going to have the Dismal. It was kind of between Dismal or Dour earlier, and now I'm just mixing them up. I chose Dismal. Not that that matters. The spells he knows, he's got Detect Magic, Read Scripts, Move Silently, Locate Object, Pain, which is nightmarish, Light, Darkness, No Direction, Trip, Trap, Dark Sight, Hold Portal, Illusion, Invisibility, and Levitate. And these numbers down here are actually I think those are the numbers he has to beat at his level on a d20 to cast a spell correctly. So how this works is whenever he casts a spell, he needs to beat a certain number on a d20. And if he succeeds, or I think even if he doesn't succeed, he's actually going to lose points of constitution. That won't kill him. It kind of represents a spell points pool. It won't kill him, but if he does run out of points, he's going to operate as though he were under the effects of a feeble mind spell. Okay, so there's Durleth. And then as our solo aid stuff, we're going to be using, if we get into a dungeon, unless I really want to generate one using Gygax's work, that's fairly intensive. We have these dungeon generation playing cards. Then we have certain types of dice. These can determine weather. These can determine NPC disposition, stuff like that. I also got kind of these weird story dice with these pictures on them. We can use these to interpret random things we find. And then I have kind of directional and stuff like that. Then we're going to be using, for a little bit more, kind of just to keep the game going, we have OSR Solo. I could use Mythic. Mythic's a little bit heavier than this, and I wanted something a bit lighter and agile. So that's our setup. And I'm going to cut the camera, and we are going to start our campaign in the City of Mouse. So our night die is higher than the day die, so that means it is at night. This is kind of chipped, but that's actually a snow indicator. So it is a cloudy, overcast, snowy night in the northern regions of Blackmoor. The City of Mouse, it's a trade city, so in this case we're going to say it's one of these places that never quite sleeps properly. So there's always activity. There's always hustle and bustle because people are usually kind of they're doing business, be it legal or illegal. This is also it's a large, wicked city. And I was reading that they also have to fear the Skandaharians quite a bit, so they might trade with them. But there's always a threat of a kind of a northern raid. Today, Durleth finds himself at his favorite drinking hole, which does not have a name. But you know what? I'm going to call it the. I'll call it the Timberwolf Tavern because that sounds kind of cool. The Timberwolf Tavern is it's sort of a hole in the wall. Durleth has been very, very frugal lately, ever since he's been saving up every coin he's got because he has inspiration for a device he's trying to build. He thinks he's going to solve these Skandaharian raids forever, and he's sort of in the tavern. He's got some ale or some beer, and what he's doing is he's got a notebook in the corner and he's sketching out this plan for a large humanoid machine which he dreams will patrol the coasts of Mouse around this whole duchy here. Is it a duchy? Whatever. It'll patrol the coasts. I think like Liberty Prime from Fallout, if you've ever played that, but probably not quite as large. So from here, what he's going to try and do is he needs to find a way to make some more coin. He's a magic user, so there's some uses for whatever spells he's got, and he's going to. He doesn't really want to work a normal job. He wants to use his magic to his benefit. So in order to generate a quest, I know I could use the Table Fables books to do that, but I thought what I might do, because it might be a little bit more fun, I thought I might use these interesting little story die just to sort of, I guess, randomize something to do or make something. I want to interpret what his plans are here. So we'll roll our die. So we have 4 swords, and then we have what looks to be broken runes of some kind. So there's like a sort of a broken shield. And there's two of these square objects and what looks like a shattered mountain. So to me, this says ruins. So these are the ruins of an older civilization or like a fort, maybe dwarven. Swords, in this case, I'm going to say this represents action. So he's... this sounds like a dungeon dive to me. Because it looks like he's talking... Or there's something valuable in some ruins. As we can see just near Mouse, there are actually a bunch of mountains just to the southwest there. So he might leave the city and investigate these ruins. Probably in search of magical artifacts that he can either sell or repurpose towards his goal. So I think that's good. That's going to be our goal. He's going to go investigate these ruins, and first let's go ahead and ask an oracle: are these dwarven ruins that he's found? No, these are not dwarven ruins. Does he know who these belong to? Yes. So what I'm guessing here is this is going to be an old... Durleth knows about it, and he thinks there's magic in there. So I'm going to assume that this is an old kind of sorcerer's fortress or retreat, which is actually pretty fortuitous for Durleth, because maybe there could be more magic in there that he can try and learn for himself, and thereby empower himself and make it more likely that he can complete this machine. So it's... does Durleth... Now, I would want to keep this venture secret if I was doing it. Does Durleth want to keep this secret? If the answer is no, then it's very likely he's going to try and find a party or some hirelings to take with him. So that's what we're going to do. Does he want to keep this to himself? Yeah, he does. So he's going to go solo. It is at night currently, and it's snowing. This is probably his last meal before he heads out on the road, because he would want to do so under cover of darkness. Now, it's going to be really, really daggum cold, and he is leaving the walls of the city, so that means there's a chance for random encounters. Each one of these hexes is 10 miles, so he is going to be hiking from Mouse. It's looking to be about... I'm gonna throw a die on one of these, or I'm gonna... Let's see, how many mountains? There's actually 6 high mountains there, and I'm gonna go in order. So depending on the number he rolls here is the mountain on which this ruin is located. So that's what we're gonna figure out here. 4. So in order, that's gonna be 1, 2. Now how do we want to do that? 3 and 4. So it's going to be that lowest mountain there. So away from Mouse, we're looking at about 21 to 22 miles. So, I don't know. And that looks like some foothill terrain there. So he's going to be going in between foothills or along the mountain range. So he's got quite the trip in front of him. So I will use... That's pretty fortuitous. I'll use this skull and crossbones dice to mark where he's at there. So he's actually going to finish up and pay for his ale, and he's going to head out on the road. So let me crack open this book here, First Fantasy Campaign, because I know that there are some random encounter tables for the wilderness. And we're going to see if Durleth's journey is very hard from the get-go, or if it's just a walk. It does look like there's a road here, so he may just take the road and then leave the road. That'll be substantially faster. And it goes down there along the coast. Let's see if you can see that. It's sort of that dotted line there along the coast from Mouse down south. So that's what we're going to do. Since he's on the road, chances of an encounter are going to be somewhat smaller. So put that there, and let me crack open this book really. Here we are. So this is Into the Great Outdoors. We have this lovely little table for random encounters. We even have a chance of avoiding an encounter or a judge's option. Durleth by himself is probably, depending on what he encounters, he's probably going to try and avoid it. He's one dude. In his mind, I think he's thinking this is going to be like a quick in and out. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, walk into the ruins and walk back out. I'm sure that's exactly how that's going to go, bud. So, where are we? We are on we're on a road hex, but there's nothing like that. No. This is like mountain hexes up there. So, mountain squares, we're going to roll a d20 at that. Those are some scary options right there. I'm not going to lie. Look at that. A Balrog, giants, lycanthropes, trolls, true trolls. I don't even know what that means. Ogre, a right, I think that means white. An orc, bandits, an air elemental. We got two chances to run into a freaking rock. Oh my gosh. So a rock is just like a giant bird. Okay, yeah. So here we go. We're gonna roll for well, actually, we should roll to see if we have an encounter first of all. So that's gonna be. I'm not sure what the chances are in this system. I don't really want to go flipping through the book, so I'm going to use Labyrinth Lord because that's what I did before. So Labyrinth Lord says that an encounter wandering around is going to be on a 1 or a 2. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to roll our d6. That's a 4, so there's no encounter. I'm not sure how often to do that. We'll do it per hex. He walks about 10 miles. That's going to put him kind of in this next hex down here. Sort of the middle of the night here. Does the weather change on us? Yeah, it does. Wind, a lot of wind. That's going to slow him down a little bit. Durleth isn't the most sturdy dude. Actually, no, he's got a strength of 14 and a constitution of 13. So he's probably enduring it pretty well. But it's, the wind is just biting cold. There's probably still snow. The moon is sort of illuminating these thick, heavy clouds, low hanging in the sky, and just racing across the horizon because of the wind. So this is probably the wind from up in the Skandaharian lands. It's carried down by. I read there's another resource where there's a big channel up to the northwest called the Frostfire Channel, and Arctic waters make their way down into this big sea that's just around Blackmoor and Mouse. And the result is that the sea is freezing cold, and basically any water or any condensation that comes off of it would just be ridiculously cold. So this whole place is just utterly frigid. So we're going to check again. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to give him a constitution check to see if he can keep going. So he needs to roll below a 13. If he fails to do that, he's going to have to stop, and he's going to have to rest. He does have some gear with him to construct a very simple one-man tent. And, okay, so below 13, so 12 or lower, and he can keep going. That's an 8. So he's gritting his teeth and he's pushing through it. It's the next hex, so we're going to check for another encounter. That's a 4, so nothing yet. It's just it's quiet, it's dark, and it's cold. You know what? Should he have... He does have the light darkness spell. So for fun, we're actually going to cast a spell really quick. Does he want to cast a spell? Because that might give away his position, but then again, he might just want the light. Yeah, he wants to cast the spell, but he's worried about what it might do. But yeah, he's going to cast it. So this is the table that tells you how tiring a specific spell will be. So he is casting a first level spell. The number he has to beat at level 3 for first level spell is 3. And he is going to... we'll keep track of his spell points. So here we go. It shouldn't be too hard. He's going to roll above a 3. He rolls a 19. That's a success. Now what we're going to do is we're going to roll his fatigue die. This is the system I really, really like. You should actually roll these simultaneously. So he rolled a 19, and he rolled a 1. And a 1 here means he actually loses no stamina. So he got a freebie there. So he casts his light spell, and it's sort of this, it's like a bright white, it's like an LED, and it kind of hovers over his shoulder. And he he's kind of grateful for the light, and he's kind of sad that it doesn't warm him up any. But he's going a little bit longer. I'm going to give him another Constitution check. Another thing I should do is I should actually roll against his current magic point total, which is like his reduced Constitution. That'll mean like he's more tired because, casting spells should be a tiring thing. So he's still going. We're going to roll against his Constitution again. And you know what? We're also going to roll for an encounter. He succeeds, but he does encounter something. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to roll an encounter. I noticed there's no entry for just like people. You could run into bandits, but there's no just like people running around. So it's pretty hostile up here. So here we go. We're going to roll a d20. If he gets a 15 or above, there is no encounter. Like it's just, or we could say it's just people. Yeah, that'll be it, because we've already rolled that there is an encounter. So here we go. That's a 20. There is just people on the road. So is this a merchant caravan? Yes. I don't know what the butt would be. But they're not moving. He encounters them on the road. They're set up along the side of the road. And he's moved a couple of hexes down. He's actually in the right area to start leaving the road. So they're set up on the side of the road. They have kind of a night watch up, because by now it's easily the tiny, tiny hours of the morning. The sun's going to be coming up over the horizon. Durleth has just pushed all through the night. Really, he should have had a penalty to that Constitution roll, but let's check the disposition of these guys we just met. So I have a die for this, but there are kind of like there's tables for that, but I'm gonna use my die because I like the simplicity of it, even though it's a little bit more chaotic. So this is going to be the reaction of the night guards that are on watch. This is going to be their final watch before they start waking everybody up. Oh, by the way, before we do this, has the weather changed? No. It is still windy and frigid. So here we go. These guys, they're not doing so hot. I imagine they're cold, they're miserable, they've been standing there for hours. So Durleth is going to leave the road, and I find it somewhat unlikely that Durleth wants to interact with them. He has to go past them anyway, because they're on the side of the road that's headed towards the mountain. But at the same time, Durleth is absolutely exhausted. You know what? Durleth he's going to go outside himself, and he's going to speak with this guard, who I'm going to name Gary. So Gary's going to take a look at Durleth. He comes. He could see his light kind of bobbing down the road, and you gotta imagine from Gary's perspective, a single lone traveler comes wandering down the road. There's frost all over his clothes. I imagine Durleth is dressed pretty warmly. He'd be a moron not to be. So it's just kind of this guy who's all wrapped up, and his immediate disposition is just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing out here? And Durleth he's going to ask them if he can hang out at their camp for a little bit and warm up by their fire, because it looks like, have they? No, actually, they haven't even started a fire yet. They're gonna start cooking breakfast pretty soon here. So Durleth is going to ask to be a part of that, and I assume he's brought some of his own. He's brought some of his own equipment for. He's got rations to share, is what I'm saying. So I'm gonna see if they're comfortable having some guy just kind of come off the road and join them. Is that something they'd be on about? I think that's just his general mood. He's just kind of down. So we'll give Durleth a. Durleth's going to try and convince him to let him stay. So we're going to see how convincing he is. So he needs to get under a 9 on his d20. He rolls a 1. That's a critical success in this situation. So he's very personable. That's rare for him. He's not usually very social. So I'm going to say that that's a success. So I think I should give him a 4 in 6 chance of succeeding. So if we roll, no, I'm going to give him 5 and 6. So if we roll a 3 or higher on this d6, because he did really well. What? Hang on. Keeps rolling off. We did roll a 6 though, however. So they are going to let him stay. So he's going to spend the next little bit at their camp. And while he's there, it might be a good idea to look for some rumors. So the types of rumors that Durleth is going to be asking after, he's not going to ask about the ruins because he's trying to keep that on the down low. Instead, he's going to try and get a lay of the land. Have you seen any monsters? That kind of thing. So again, we're actually going to be using these interesting story dice to try and kind of make up what they've been experiencing in this area. They're probably on their way north to the city of Mouse to trade in goods. So they have been walking through here for quite some time. If they're on this road, that means they came all the way across through the Elven Forest, probably from more along the lines of the Blackmoor or Glendor area. So that means they've been through these woods and up here. So he's asking mostly about what they've experienced around this area. So what do they have to say? They describe, that's more of these ruin die that we saw before. And how would we interpret this? Because it's probably not just more ruins. They probably did see some of that. It's probably kind of like old abandoned keeps or villages that were destroyed by the Scandaharians. But I think what they're describing here is an idea that entered my head was that they are actually describing the remnants of a conflict. Although this would be more appropriate for that. But that's just the idea I'm getting from this. So this is going to be a lot of broken armor, maybe some bones, stuff like that, or some dead bodies around there, saying that it looked like there was a conflict on the road, maybe between militiamen and bandits, something like that. So the remnants of that conflict may still be around, and it's something for us to keep our eye on. But besides that, they don't. Do they mention anything about monsters? I'm going to ask them about monsters. Are there monsters around here that they've seen? Yes, they've seen a monster. And you know what we're going to do? We're actually going to crack open the first fantasy campaign again. And we're going to go back to that section about random encounters. And we are going to see, based on what we roll, what they saw. And that's probably going to dictate a monster that's in the area that we should avoid. If we get another encounter, it's probably going to be that monster. We'll say that. So here we go. This is a d20 roll. That's a 6. So what they've seen in this mountainous region, lycanthropes. So that means sometime during the night, whilst we were still traveling to this location, they must have seen a type of lycanthrope that's been around here. Now, in Zero Edition Dungeoneering, I think there's 3 kinds of lycanthropes. So we're going to ask him what kind, because it does matter. If it's a werebear, that means it's not so bad. Werebears tend to be pretty moral, or at least less chaotic than something like a werewolf. We're actually going to roll. First of all, could he tell? Just by looking at it, it was dark. So can you tell? Yeah, he could tell. So he saw it pretty clearly. And we're going to go to L. No, okay, so it's where. So there are 3 different kinds of lycanthropes here. We have werebears, were-rats, and werewolves. So in that order, we're going to roll a d3. So number 1, werebear. Number 2, werewolf. Number 3, were-rat. That's a 3. He's seen were-rat, which they're not alone. They usually come in packs of 1 to 20 from the looks of it. So these guys saw, ooh, that's a 20. He saw like a veritable army of these things off in the just off in the foothills here. So that's something we need to watch out for. Thanks for that, buddy. No, genuinely, thank you, because 20 were-rats, buddy? What's going on here? Well, let's pray we don't run into those guys, because as soon as we get some breakfast in us, we're probably going to take a nap, and we're going to continue on towards the ruins. My goodness. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how this is even going to work out for Durleth if we run into these things. You know, were-rats aren't unintelligent. They can think, they can speak, so we may be able to talk to them with our whopping charisma of 9. So this is kind of where we're at now. That mountain on the bottom directly to the left of the die is the mountain we are looking for. That's where this ruin is. So Durleth is going to be leaving the road just along the coast there. And it looks like he's got roughly... Each one of those hexes is 10 miles. It looks like a 5-mile hike off into the wilderness towards that mountain. Maybe a little bit more. But he's going to set off. We're going to check the changing of the weather here. We're going to see, did the weather change at all? No. This is just wind. It's windy and cold. The sun is rising. Durleth has had some breakfast. He's had a nap, and he's said goodbye to these merchants who are continuing north to Mouse. So he's going to begin his trek into the wilderness, now very weary of were-rats. We're going to check an encounter. We're off the road now. I would make that different, but I'm not going to, because what I mean by that is I could say he encounters something on a 3 and 6 rather than a 2 and 6, but we're not going to do that to him. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to roll our die. We're going to see it's 1 and 2. Is there anything in the bushes here? That's a 6. So no, lucky him. And for the rest of that trek, that's going to be like that trek there. So he gets to the mountain. The sun is over the horizon. Is it still overcast? Absolutely, it's still overcast. The clouds are still racing across the sky. The northern Scandaharian wind, just brutal. It's shaking all these trees around him. He's sort of in this area is pretty green, actually. It's not quite as dense as the Elven Forest there, a little bit to the south, but there are quite a few trees around here, and the wind is just bending these things, and you can hear the leaves rustling and the trunks of the trees cracking. And he, based on Durleth's promptness in leaving, I assume that he knows where this dungeon is. So, or maybe it's a dungeon. Is it a dungeon or a ruin? We're going to say he finds it, but is it a full-on dungeon? Yeah, that's a dungeon. Okay. Well, let me pull back a second, and we'll start using these cards, and we're going to see what we're in for. We're going to get dungeon crawling. This could get ugly, or this could go very, very well. Yeah, I'm trying to decide whether to use the cards or to use Gygax's dungeon generation. For now, I think I'm going to use the cards, because I don't know where my grid paper is. So, okay, so we're going to begin our dungeon dive here. I have picked what looks to be a really, really cool entrance. So we're going to start with the Forgotten Stairwell. So I didn't, the rest of this is going to be random, but this is sort of our entrance. This is coming down from from kind of a ruined castle on the surface. So the rest of this is sort of a kind of a big laboratory that belonged to a powerful sorcerer a long time ago. So I'm going to shuffle these up, and we are going to begin. Oh boy, that didn't work out at all. Hang on. There we go. So here we go. So we're going to start from the Forgotten Stairwell. He descends from this ruined fort. He's going to recast his light spell. Where's my d20? What do I do with it? Okay. He's going to recast his light spell. He's got to beat a 3. He actually failed that. He rolled a natural 1. He failed to beat a 3. He rolled a 4 as well. And so he loses a point of constitution. That's going to put him at 12. He's got 12 spell points left. That sucked. Now, I'm not sure how this works. Sometimes when you fail a spell, you can't cast it again. There is no limit on the number of times a caster can cast a spell per day or the number of times they can cast a particular spell. However, every time a mentally prepared spell is cast, a failure roll and an exhaustion roll must be made. The spell failure table does not apply to casting scrolls. Okay. A failed cast causes the caster to lose the ability to cast that particular spell until they have rested and had an opportunity to read the spell in their spellbook. So he he fumbled that spectacularly. So he's just in the dark. And he's like, well, crap. I guess I'll just light up a torch. Did we bring torches? No. Well, good job, Durleth. Well done. Well, he's going to go back up, and because he's not going to stay down here, so he's going to go back up and study his spellbook, like a lunatic. Why didn't you bring torches, my guy? Anyway, that's actually a pretty good beginning. This is a stopping point. This next time we are going to delve deeper into this. I don't know when the next session of this is going to be. I just kind of wanted to mess around in Blackmoor. Because I like the setting. So the next time we're going to do a video, we're going to start at the Forgotten Stairwell, and we're going to branch out from there. I might end up having to use this entire card table for that, so maybe it's good because I'll need some more services around me to hold all the books. So why Blackmoor? A little while ago, I kind of fell down the Secrets of Blackmoor rabbit hole with the who are these guys? They did their Fellowship of the Thing, something like that. I'll link them in the description. They have like a website where you can look into this. I fell down this rabbit hole of researching where D&D came from, a lot of its roots in wargaming, and some of those earliest games around Dave Arneson's table. And I really wanted to experience it a little bit how it might have been. Of course, I'm playing solo, so I don't know how accurate that would be. But I wanted to mess around in that original setting. It looks like a lot of it is, again, it's fairly bare bones. You kind of have to make up a lot of stuff as you go, because the only thing that's in any greater amount of detail is actually the town of Blackmoor itself. It's pretty vague on things like Mouse and any of the other surrounding territories. I think they talk a little bit about Lake Gloomy, or Loch Gloomen, I think, as they call it. But it's really, really fascinating to read through some of this early stuff. I saw recently that Wizards of the Coast put forward this kind of like D&D Origins book, and then they decided they were going to call the creators a bunch of fairly derogatory things, which personally I was sort of aghast when I heard that sort of thing. It's like we wouldn't even have this hobby without these guys. Show a little bit of respect. You know what I'm saying? Before I go off on too much of a rant, I'll say thank you for watching, and that we should be honoring the legacy of the people that came before us, because if we can see any further, it's because we are standing on the shoulders of giants, and because they did a lot of the mental heavy lifting to make our hobby what it is today. So thank you to Gary Gygax. Thank you to Dave Arneson, and I can't wait to continue this campaign. I'm a little rusty on solo gaming right now. I do plan on getting back into the swing of things. But yeah, our adventures in Blackmoor will continue. I might bring in other resources, because I know that Dave Arneson did write on a couple other versions of this. So I might bring in the 3.5 Blackmoor, and I might bring in the Adventures in Blackmoor for the Rule Cyclopedia or the BECME system, because I liked how those were done. I don't like how it's sort of connected with Mystara. I liked Blackmoor as kind of its own thing, but you know, we'll play it by ear. We'll play it by ear. We'll take things that are useful to us, like gods and holidays and things like that, that are useful as we find them. Because for the life of me, I cannot figure out what the wishy-washy way or the Church of the Facts of Life are. So anyway, we'll see you in the next one. And thank you for watching.